Good morning, folks. Welcome back out to the garden here at Mark Kelly Farm. Hope you enjoyed our little silent tour this morning. Love this time of day. There's no better time of day to be out here in the garden. It's just a glorious morning. We've got a beautiful sunset coming on. It'll turn from pink to red and then back to blue again fairly quickly. If you blink, you'll miss it. But we've got our old favorite coffee cup out here this morning. We're going to do some weeding here in the garden, and then we'll give you a little tour once that sun starts coming up. All right, we're all done weeding the garden. Took about 30 minutes. That's not too long, every like 3 days, 4 days. Doesn't take long at all. That's, let's see, a 48 by 86 garden. Not bad. So we've got a lot of other stuff done too. I had to reinstall some drip hoses on the fruit orchard. I had to spread the mulch on the grapes and a couple other items before we got to our garden tour, but let's get at it. We'll start here in the greenhouse. Cat, our rooster, has been quiet this whole time, and now he wants to start up, of course. We still have our insurance tomatoes in here in the greenhouse. We do get hailstorms on occasion here in the summer, so if we get a hailstorm that destroys our garden, I still got some insurance tomatoes I can put out. And then everything else is pretty much gone. Kelly's got some flowers over here and some stuff she was trying to start, but I think it's just too hot in here when the sun comes up. It's like 115, 120 degrees in here sometimes. Now I've taken all of our cedar trees that were down here in the grass and the weeds, and I put them on a pallet so I can move them around with the tractor with the pallet forks on. And we still have a couple roses as insurance in case some of our transplanted roses don't come through. We've already replaced a couple of them, so it was nice to have those. We have these lick tubs over here empty other than our potatoes. We're going to harvest these potatoes here in the next few days. A couple more roses here. This is the grape arbor we've been training. We've been training the canes up onto that upper trellis. If you remember last year, this was fairly disheveled back here, but it's looking really good now. We've laid some mulch down because we had weed sprayed. You can see the weeds have all died back. So to keep from having to weed spray here underneath the grapes a bunch more, we used a bunch of our lawn clippings from the other day and spread them in here as mulch. Thank you, Cat. So this will keep the weeds down. We have Kelly's chocolate mint in here. Very fragrant. I can smell it right now. And there's another plant over here. We've been making tea out of that. It's really good. You can see all of our canes up here on our pipe. We've been cutting off the ones that are shooting out sideways, the ones we don't want, because we're doing a cordon prune method. So we need to focus on the top cordons and not let the energy go into a bunch of side growth. And even with that, we still have some Concord grapes that are coming on. And then there's these other varieties are producing some. But I'm real happy with this. This is going to be really nice. Our 2 pluot trees are still doing okay. We've been keeping them watered. Even though it's been raining, we still check them. Kelly's roses that she planted here around the chicken coop are doing really good. And then we got a clematis over here that's starting to grow. She's doing this for some shade. It'll kind of shade this corner of the coop here. Another rose doing really well. And then there's some other stuff in here. Trying to remember what it was. I think she's got some lavender planted in here. And then she's got some flowers and hanging baskets up here. Oop, got a weed. Oop, another weed. But we've had a weed kind of hide in here in this rose bush. Couldn't really see it till the other day. I thought this rose bush was just booming. But then I noticed some of that's a weed, so I got to get in it underneath there and get that out. You gonna quiet down now for me, cat? I appreciate it. It's our volunteer pumpkin out here, putting on some flowers. And then the asparagus patch starting to fern out. So we thought we were appleless this year because we hadn't seen any apples. And when mowing out here the other day, I saw an apple on the ground. I'm like, what's up with that? Well, to my surprise, we have some apples up here in this tree. There's not a lot of them, but there may be enough to can, 6 jars or so of apples. But you can see there's some apples up in this tree. So it was a very pleasant surprise. I'm sure there's more up in here that I can't see, but once they start maturing, we might get a handful. Now this little bush out here at the end of the garden, out here on the corner, is a black currant. Kelly wants to keep this bush. I really don't care for it, but the birds come in here and got all of Kelly's black currants, so she didn't get to harvest any this year. If it were up to me, this bush would go because it's not in an ideal spot. I would have run the bush hog over it already if it were up to me, but Kelly wants it, it stays. All right, we made it into the garden. So our first row here, if you remember, we were going to plant some broccoli and cauliflower, and we have done that. We got it out of the greenhouse and we've put that in. And we had a little cold time of year here come up with some rain and stuff, so it was a great time to transplant because the sun didn't beat down on them so hard. We were getting 100-degree temps out here. And then our bok choy, some of it's ready to harvest. We're going to start harvesting some of this and eating it. It's really good, kind of a cabbage flavor, but it's great in stir fry. A little butter, salt and pepper, and I got some 18-year balsamic vinegar that's really going to kick that up a notch. Can't wait to do that. But we only lost one transplant. It was kind of puny and it didn't make it. Now over here on the end of our bok choy, we've got artichoke down there. Got 2 of them here. So we're looking forward to those growing. It does seem a little late in the season to plant artichoke, but I was going by the recommendations on the package for our area. And this is the first time planting artichoke in our area, so I'll take their word for it. Butter crunch lettuce. We could harvest some of this now if we wanted some baby greens, but we have enough in the fridge to last us a little while. And this stuff's here a little further along. We have a couple plants here that need to be cut already. And then our jalapeno peppers in this next row. We've already got like 2-3 peppers on that plant there. And this is where our spinach was. Got some dill going on there. We've already got quite a few cucumbers out of this deal here. I think there's only 2 cucumber plants there. And I've had a heck of a time trying to get them to grow up that trellis. I'm trying to train them to go up there. But lots and lots of cucumbers out of there, and we're going to be getting a lot more. You look along the vine in there, there's lots of cucumbers growing along these vines. So we're going to get quite a load more of cucumbers out of there. I've just about got all the pickles made I need for this year. So I'm going to make some pickles up for my cousin. He really likes dill pickles. The kale is still booming down here. This stuff grows like a weed. And then our kohlrabi over here, we've started to harvest. So you can see the bulbs in here. That's about a tennis ball sized bulb, and that's what they recommend. And we've got a couple in here that are ready to harvest. Here's another one down here on the end that we can harvest. They say they're the most tender when you don't get them over about the size of a tennis ball, or 3 to 4 inches max is what they recommend. And you can roast those. The leaves are edible too, if you want to eat the leaves in a stir fry or something. I have never had the bok choy leaves, but definitely going to try them. Now our peas are climbing. We've been picking snow peas out of here. Eat them fresh most of the time. Tomatoes, we're starting to be able to tie up and weave the tomatoes into the trellis. So some of them that were out in the row I've tied so they'd get a little bit closer. And you can see we've been weaving the plant through the cattle panel. Now anything that gets way crazy out here in the row, you can just clip off. You can prune tomatoes all year long. It doesn't hurt them a bit. So anything that's not going where you want it, just clip it off. Not a big deal. Once the plants get going, they do really well. Now these tomatoes here, let me look at the stake. I believe these are the San Marzanos. Yes, they are. So we have 4 San Marzanos here. And even our puniest tomato, if you remember this little guy here, starting to grow nicely. They've just been really slow this year for some reason. But they're getting there. They're nice and green. So we know they got what they need. Now these Sweet 100 tomatoes down here, they've already got flowers on them. And I believe I saw a few little tiny fruit going on, but we've been weaving these as well in and out of the cattle panel. And I believe we'll be getting cherry tomatoes first for sure. Now our next row over here is our habanero peppers. I think I told you last time I'm going to make some salsa out of this stuff that my buddy out from California, Arnie, makes. I really enjoy it, so I've got the recipe from him, so I'm going to be making it this year as well. I like to put it on steak and stuff. Our cabbage row here is kind of dismal, but we're going to get a few heads. So I'll probably figure out some other fall crop that we can plant here in this row that where the cabbages just didn't make it. They were kind of weak coming from the garden center, so we didn't expect much. But we've got like almost a purple cabbage here, and then another one here. We'll get some heads. This one here, I don't know what it's going to do. It's kind of struggling, but it's hanging on. Now over here, our beans are climbing really good. We've just about got a bean on every wire of that cattle panel. We'll be picking beans before you know it. Now the stuff down here on the bottom that's getting a little wild and not climbing, I'm probably going to prune this stuff off. You can see it a little better on these beans over here. I'm probably going to come through and trim some of this stuff off, the stuff that's not climbing, that's kind of growing out into the row, because we've got plenty of plants up here climbing. So this is just going to get in the way out here. So we'll bring you back around. This is our buttercup squash. Crazy difference from last week, right? These squash are getting huge, taking up the whole row over here. And then down here we have our Hubbard squash right there, really thriving. And then here we have our butternut squash right there. Our cantaloupe has taken off. I'm going to have to separate these two a little bit. I don't want them intermingling. I don't want any cantaloupe squash or squashalopes. And then watermelons. These are our crimson sweet watermelons, which is one of my favorites. And the other icebox melons down here are the sugar babies. Slow start, but they're coming on. Now for the squash. We've been getting loads and loads of squash. This is our zucchini squash. And we've already got enough to make a second double batch of our zucchini relish, and we've been eating some for dinner. I really enjoy zucchini squash sliced up with some mushrooms, sauteed in some butter, salt and pepper, and a little bit of crushed garlic. And that is a phenomenal side dish if you haven't had that before. I've sprinkled Parmesan cheese on it a little bit as a finish a few times. It's good. So give that a try. And then our yellow or summer squash, crookneck squash. It was supposed to be like a yellow zucchini, but looks more like a yellow crookneck to me. So what I'm thinking about doing, since we've been inundated with squash, we did give a little bit to the neighbor the other day only because she hadn't planted any, but I think literally everybody right now this time of year is suffering from squash overpopulation disorder. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through and pull every other plant in this row, because now that they're growing together, it'll make it easier if I can just walk around the plants as I pick. And like I said, we've got plenty of squash, and we don't do the farmer's market thing, but we've got lots of zucchini in here to pick right now. You can see that's about the ideal size right there. So we'll come through this afternoon and pick even more zucchini, probably give some to my cousins. But that's the tour of the interior of the garden this morning. I just love being out here in the morning and walking around the garden. Even the weeding is therapeutic for me. I just stroll through the garden. Sometimes I put on a little oldies music on my Bluetooth radio and just kind of tool around out here. But it's a beautiful morning. Now, because of all the crazy moisture we've been getting lately, I probably haven't watered this garden maybe 2.5 weeks, almost 3 weeks. Haven't had to run any water out here in the garden. But that does promote the weed growth for sure. So we did have more weeds out here, but we've been staying on top, as you see. I could sit and stare at this garden all day long. I'd hoped to get these strip sprays done, but the wind's kicking up this morning. Hopefully this afternoon, when all this is dry, the wind will calm down again. However, we have a state championship baseball game to go in town today at about 3 o'clock. So then we'll probably end up doing dinner after that. So this may have to wait again. We've had 3 of my family's children here out in Nebraska are in state championships this year. We've been so proud of them. We had 2 of our girls state champions softball. That was a week or so, 2 weeks ago. That was phenomenal seeing them win the state championship. Now one of my cousin's boys, well, 2 of them actually, are in the state championship, and we're hosting it here in our town. So that's really exciting. We get to go watch that. It goes for like 5 days. So super excited. Our wildflowers out here had pretty much all gone to seed, so I was able to get the bush hog out here and knock all this down flat, scattering those seeds far and wide. You can see how some of these weeds, boy, they just bounce right back. But I still got the bush hog on, so I'll come out here and make sure I hit these before they go to seed. But gives Kelly sunflower some more room in here. And then if for some reason we need to irrigate in the fall, we can get in here now and put a sprinkler over here. But we've got some blooms. Got some sunflowers coming on. But this whole side of the barn will be covered with sunflowers. It'll be super cool once they all start blooming. And then you'll be able to see that from the road as you go by. It's our old windmill tower I got from one of the neighbors last year. And we plan on putting it up somewhere in the yard. Not for functionality or pumping water, just kind of as a yard art decoration. I have a line on a windmill head, but the guy's kind of slow getting back to me because he's really busy and I don't want to bug him. But one of these days we'll get this windmill up, and we still have to get our new hive bodies painted for these bees and get the new hive bodies installed. The bees are just now starting to come out this morning. We've been in the low 50s. So they've been kind of hibernating in here, sleeping in. But there's a few of them coming in and out. Well, the slogan here in Nebraska, the state motto, is the good life. And I know why, only living here even just a little under 2 years. Folks, this is the good life, I tell you what. I will say, if you like what you see and you end up wanting to move to Nebraska, don't come here trying to change things, folks. We love it just the way it is. Little update on the girls. They're in the chicken coop. Our current record is 11 eggs a day. We have 20 hens and 1 rooster, so I'm sure that's going to go up. And they are starting to lay in the nest boxes, so just about all the eggs are in the nest boxes now, so looking great. Our strawberries underneath the flagpole. Old Glory flying upstairs. We love our flag. Now these are the roses we transplanted. Gave you a look at these. This one was actually transplanted last year. We got them over here against the fence instead of in the middle of the yard where they were before. But I had to bring a new one over here for this one the other day because it was just so puny that it didn't make it. But all these other ones are leafing out good, even though they're small. They got leaves and they're going to survive. We reed sprayed over here a while back. I think I'm going to spot spray over here when I do the strip spray over in the fruit orchard. And this is another one that we replaced. The potted ones were doing really well, so we just brought them over. That's why we potted them, was for insurance. Now this one in the corner, it's got green growth up here on the top. I need to bring some pruning shears over here and cut a lot of these other branches off that aren't leafing out, so it'll concentrate the energy into that one stem that is leafing out. There's a look at the front of the house. The roses came back really well this year in the front of the house. We absolutely love those. And the thing with those plants there, those roses, just like anything else on this property, there's a story behind all of those plants. The black-eyed Susan you see there intermingled with the roses. That plant was actually from the previous owners when his wife was in the nursing home before she passed. Somebody had given her that black-eyed Susan, and he planted it out here in the front of the house, and it has survived. He saw a picture of the place the other day, and he was real happy to see that black-eyed Susan back. So we love our plants. I love the history that goes with them. Now this shelter belt, I tell you, is a a godsend. Let me tell you, the family that owned this property planted, the lady that lived here wrote the book and all that we've talked about before. She loved those Chinese elms. They were her favorite tree, so she planted a bunch of them. And I'll have a picture that I'll show you right now of when all these trees were planted. Pretty cool, huh? So these trees do an amazing job stopping the wind. We could have crazy 80-mile-an-hour winds and you won't feel it right here because all this blocks the wind, and we have it covered on two sides, the west side and the north side, and wraps around the east side a little bit. But just an amazing difference. When the wind's blowing really hard, you won't even hardly feel it out here, but you walk out, say, to go get the mail, you get out past this fat Albert tree out here, and as soon as you pass it, the wind wants to blow you over. It's amazing how this shelter belt stops the wind, and we're really fortunate to have one this size. Now, we see some weeds in our mulch that we laid down last year, and the mulch works really well unless your dog lays there and digs a hole like Brandy does and moves all the mulch out. So we got a couple weeds popping up. We'll just get those pulled up. They'll come up real easy out of that mulch, and then we'll lay a thicker layer of mulch in here. But I don't know if we can keep Brandy out of there or not. She likes laying out here in the sun in the morning. Alright folks, that's about it for this latest garden tour. We hope you enjoyed going around the homestead here and seeing what's going on. We're real pleased with the progression of the garden, even though we've got a slow start. If you remember, we like to plant around May 1st, and because of some unseasonable weather, we didn't get to plant till June 1st. So that's why everything looks really late this year. But hopefully we'll have enough time to get everything through, and I think we will. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Remember, we got those potatoes we're going to can, and we'll show you how that works with our new canner. So see you then.